Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, August 18th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Today we have a number of feasts. It's a calmer day, but there's still a lot of things going on that are interesting. So first off, we start with the Abbot Orsini, who tells us we celebrate the coronation of Mary as Queen of Heaven. I assume that is a reference to the pre-1962 Missal, just because we typically celebrate that, the Mary as Queen of Heaven and Earth, on August 22nd, so we'll celebrate it on the octave day of the Assumption. He also mentions that in the year 1022, King Robert founded a chapel in honor of Our Lady in the court palace at Paris, on the spot where Sainte-Chapelle now stands. Okay, thank you, the Abbot Orsini. I think we will take your word for it. Now, we have a number of feasts here. There's Królova, Rosanka, Svetego in Wosike Kolo in Niewiskowo in Kozienice, Maslovia, Poland. Okay. So the story goes like this. During the Polish-Muscovite War in the 1600s, Mariana Kalowinska's husband, who was the butler to the rule of Czerwonogórz, which is now, they say, a ruin in Ukraine, was held captive in Moscow. But being a devoted wife, she accompanied her husband there and returned after his death with an icon of the Mother of God. In 1677, she gave that icon to a relative near Lviv, a certain Anthony Christopher Wewoniewskiemu, who took it to Zardudzia near Zamość in southeastern Poland. Okay. Anyways, while he was there, he had a dream of Mary 3 times, right? Where she said, "I weep because I am forgotten. I want you to give me an empty church in Woseki Kolo." Right? So Anthony joined the Polish forces in the Battle of Vienna in 1683, and on his return, he fulfilled Mary's request by giving the icon to the Church of St. Nicholas in Wojciechowski Kolo, some 63 miles southeast of Warsaw. Under the Dominicans, the church was rebuilt as a Marian shrine under the title of Our Lady, Queen of the Holy Rosary. It's a very interesting image. You might ask, so there's Mary holds the infant in her left arm, gesturing towards him with her right hand, but her right hand also has a rose in it. You might wonder, what's so special about August 18th? Well, Cardinal Stefan Wyszynski crowned the image on August 18th, 1974. It was also on this day in 1937 that Stella Maris, Our Lady Star of the Sea, was proclaimed as the patroness of the Argentine Navy. Another interesting feast, we're told that they celebrate Brune Lieve Worf in Leer, Antwerp, Belgium. That means the Dear Brown Lady. This commemorates a miracle of healing, or actually, they said miracle of healing. It took place in 1632. Looking it up, it seems like a woman had a child who died without being baptized. That mother prayed to Our Lady, who brought the child back to life, right? Later on, when there was a typhus epidemic raging in the nearby town in Montenaken, the inhabitants brought the statue of Mary there, but when the epidemic was over, they didn't want to return it. However, the statue of Mary simply went back on its own initiative. So, also it's the day they celebrate Beata Vergine Addolorata in Bergamo, Lombardy, Italy. That's our sorrowful Blessed Mother. The fresco was miraculously illuminated in 1602. So the story goes like this. There's this big church now in honor of the Beata Vergine Addolorata, our Blessed Sorrowful Mother, which happened, it's related to the apparition of a star. The tradition recounts that in a room that was near the bridge of Stongarda, there was on the wall a fresco of the Sorrowful Mother, which had been painted in 1597 by Giovanni Giacomo Anselmi, right? He was a painter who had lived in that place. On August 18th, 1602, the fresco, which had already started, it was already very, very, very deteriorated, was illuminated by a star that shot out 3 rays, and each ray returned the image to its original splendor. And for that reason, they built the church. There's also a very interesting devotion in Sicily, in Palermo in Sicily, a Madonna della Catena, Our Lady of Chains, right? In brief, the prisoner's chains broke in 1392. Again, modern historical sources say like, well, we don't know if this is why, like, because Palermo's a port town. They're like, maybe it's Our Lady of the Chains, like they captured chains from a boat during a war, so maybe that's, no. But the miracle is told like this, right? When Martin I was reigning in the Kingdom of Sicilia, so that was 1385 to 1409, 3 innocent young men were condemned to death, right, in Palermo. So the day of the execution, they were led out into one of the main piazzas where they were all set to get executed. But just before like they were brought in, there was it says a huge hurricane just came, right? So the police, along with the condemned men, took refuge in the little church of Santa Maria del Porto, like our Holy Mary of the Port, right, which is next to the sea, hoping that the storm would wind down. But actually the storm just kept going and going even throughout the night. Because they couldn't bring the condemned men back to prison, along with the guards, they spent the night in the church, right? The soldiers were all linked together, the prisoners, were all linked together, one to another with double chains, and after which the door was shut and locked shut, right? And so they said, okay, we'll do the execution tomorrow. So the guards slept, but the condemned men all prayed. Aware that they were innocent, they had seen in the storm and their refuge in a church like hope for their salvation. So next to the altar, where there was an image of Our Lady, there was a little lamp that shined, that was lit as their hope, right? So these 3 poor young men, all locked, linked together by their chains, prayed for the blessed, asking the Blessed Virgin to make their innocence known. At a certain moment, they heard their chains just shatter, right? Or rather, they felt them, it says, because it didn't make any noise, right? And it seemed like they heard a voice speak to them from the image. It says, "Go in freedom and do not fear anything now. The divine child that I hold in my arms has received your prayers and has granted you your lives," right? And so what happened, right? They went to the exit, like the door, and they saw that the door was wide open, right? It was already dawn. However, as they were running out, the guards caught them and they wanted to put them in chains again. But the people intervened, right? And there was a whole bunch of people in the plaza then. So the people went to go ask the king, who said that, okay, whatever. If that's the extraordinary event that happened, I declare them free, right? So the king and the queen were actually among the first to go to the little church in order to see the miracle of the broken chains and to render homage to Mary, right? From that day, there is a continuous passage of pilgrims to the shrine, right? Because she is Our Lady who breaks the chains. So that's what we're celebrating in the Marian world today on August 18th. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we continue with Meditation 66, entitled On Calvary, the Crucifixion. And today we'll start the second point, on the cross. Already nailed, Jesus is dragged on the cross to the ditch where it is to be erected. The cross is lifted, then dropped into the hole. It hits the ground violently. The pain is indescribable. The whole weight of his body is hanging on the nails. And now the shock of that cross striking the ground renders the pain more excruciating. Jesus shudders convulsively. The blood flows down the cross in abundance. Not a tremor escapes the eyes of his mother. Not a pain escapes her observation. She sees all, she understands all. Like her son, she bears all in silence. Once again, together with and close to Mary, watch this picture. Behold your king hanging between heaven and earth, crucified like a criminal between 2 thieves, abandoned by his own people, who rejoice at his suffering. Look at him and watch. Tell your mother to show him to you and to teach you how to look at Jesus crucified. See the divine head bending under the unbearable pain of the crown of thorns. See those eyes blinded by the blood which floods them. See that breast painfully heaving under the fatigue that chokes it. See that body all broken down, turned into one whole wound. See those hands and feet streaming blood. Look at him well. It is Jesus, your King, your Redeemer, your Savior.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.